Here we go. Is this a first?
Is this a first?
Three in 1 week? I'm sure we've done that. No, we've done that before.
Nah, we've done that before. We've never done a 4 spot. We've definitely done 3.
I think we did micro habits.
We did. I think you're actually right. I think we did do micro habits at one point. But yeah, we're back. It's good to be here. It's a sweltering but yet gorgeous summer day here in Overland Park, Kansas, July 16th, the year 2026, and welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 940.
Yeah. You know, I still watch a lot of Friends, occasionally just take my mind off of, wildfires and whatever else shit's going on in the world. I was just trying to that made me think, we've got 940 podcasts. Do you ever think about how some of our old shit holds up? Friends kind of holds up pretty well. So, they're on a regular phone, and there's a lot of shit going on that's kind of outdated. But I wonder how some of our old casts hold up, micro habits.
That's a great question. I think there's, what? How about this? If you're one of our 47 listeners, you're active in our Crushing Iron Facebook group, pop in there. Let us know what is your favorite podcast that we've done before we hit the 500 mark. So, it was a little about halfway through. I got to think, there's definitely some golden ones in there, the first 500. I think we've probably got one every 50, it's not like we're, setting the, the bar very high, very high. 1 out of 50. We're making a whole W. I bet we get a lot. I'm sure we've changed a little bit and adapted and come along, in a couple different ways. Both of us, right, and some of our philosophies and approaches to different things, and I think those are all good things. But yeah, I think there's probably quite a few that still stand the test of time. I bet some of our race, recaps and race previews, those definitely stand the test of time. It's not like, any of those races are, have redone any major course changes. So yeah, I bet you got some solid episodes in there.
Yeah. No, I'm sure we do. I just realize, my position changes, from day to day, let alone year to year, and over 10 years. I'm sure there's a lot of shit that we've said that I don't necessarily.
What do you think's been your biggest come around?
I think I was a lot harder of a, but I'm getting older, so that makes sense. I think I went a lot harder back in the day,
Yeah.
Now I'm really kind of coming around to this idea of, I think zone 2 is where I've come around the most. I think I was kind of flirting with the edges most of the time back in the day. And I'm not saying that doesn't work, but I don't think it's a recipe for longevity. And that's kind of where I had to go,
I can see that.
I just didn't have, after a while, it really happened. It was I could fight through almost anything for quite a while. And now I don't have the mental bandwidth to keep fighting through. It's they were talking about Vingegaard. How long is he going to hold on and keep doing the same shit? You only have so much, mental bandwidth to do the same thing over again, the same way, kind of thing. But they're saying that he's racing as well as he has, but Pogačar's so fast that. But anyway, yeah, that's where I think I've come around, is just the process a little bit more, and just trying to figure out ways to enjoy it, and longevity piece of the puzzle. Because there was always time when I was probably going to hang it up. Probably every year for about 5 years in a row. And I'm still alive.
I would agree with that. I think the last 2 years you've definitely become much more reflective. But it's been good. Everybody, we're always evolving.
Yeah, I think reflective and more confident, because I think these were things that were in my gut for years and years, and I think I've just become more confident with who I am within that scope of things. What about you?
I feel like I've come. Yeah, I think I've changed up a little bit. For sure. Specifically, I think I've definitely probably not as reflective as you. Probably veered more a little more towards the holistic side than I was out of the gate, like the first 250. But I definitely think one piece is I think I've definitely come a little bit further on the value of, as long as they're the correct drills for swimming. I'm not a huge drill guy. Like, it still makes me kind of cringe to say that, but it's true. There are some good, quote unquote, drills out there. But my biggest thing is, like, just making sure that you're doing them with a purpose, and then you're trying to incorporate them into your stroke. But yeah, I mean, there's been times, right, where I feel like I've gone away from certain things that I really, really, held steadfast, went away from them, and then found my way back to them. Like, out of the gate, like, always been a huge fan of sneaking in like a few double ride weekends for harder courses. And I went away for that little bit, and then I find myself coming right back out, coming right back to it. I've gone with the, run frequency, then I've gone to run quality, then I've done a little bit of both, so yeah, I mean, I think I've probably, ebbed and flowed, a little bit with those things. But yeah, I definitely think, like, do see some value for most people with drill swimming, as long as you're, one, doing the drill right, and two, you're, trying to apply it to your stroke. You're just not trying to get better at the drill, in isolation. You're trying to actually make the, that piece of your stroke fit the remainder of your strokes, as you continue to swim.
Let me ask you a question about swimming. Would you prescribe, what would be better in your mind, 5 1200s on 5 separate days, or 3000s?
Man, you're painting me into a corner here. Honestly, I think I would go 5 1200s.
There was a time when you didn't really like that.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's very true. And the point being, and the reason for that is, and obviously it depends, like, per athlete, but I'd still, I mean, you're still, if you're doing 5 1000, you're still getting in 6K, right? Which is pretty good. But I do think that you'd be able to split those 5 up to where they're really, really, really going to matter. It's kind of like the same thing as, like, hey, would you rather do, 3 2-hour rides over the course of the week, or do 4 1-hour rides and a 2-hour? Like, well, obviously, like, the 4 1s and the 2. You can make it really, really focused. So I think that would be the huge benefit of the 5 12s that that your example, because you could do, probably 2 speeds, 2 techs, and then I would do, like, 1 just, like, steady temp, honestly, like a 1200 time trial. But I think that, I mean, yeah, I think I would go for that. I mean, it's funny you asked me that, because I was actually reading, like, an article this morning about, like, the top 50 freestyle guy in the world right now. He might, and this obviously is, like, not even close to a triathlon, should train, right? Or, it's in the same ballpark, but still, that he might do 4K a week. Mm-hmm. That he is the best 50 freestyler in the world, but can't even make his Olympic team in the 100. Because they're so different, but he's all about, maximizing, the time, because he's just trying to train a specific skill. And while, obviously that doesn't correlate, directly to, triathlon, because we're obviously swimming in a longer distance. I mean, there are some, like, it's funny, right? Because we still do, we still talk about, like, the importance of VO2 max, the ceiling, right? Because it sets the ceiling for your cycling and your running, and, not just from, like, a cardiovascular standpoint, but also, like, that's the amount of power you can generate with your legs, or the muscles that you have. Same thing with your, same thing running, but we rarely ever do that with swimming. And so I think if you're able to break it down, do something like 5 1200s, like, you could do some really good sets. And again, and make the time really, really, really count. Because, I mean, again, like, I think most swimmers, anything past 2K, and they're doing their grocery list, they're thinking about what they got to do afterwards, they're thinking about the race, they're thinking about, what time I got to pick up the kids. Like, they're not even engaged. They're just kind of, like, moving their body within the water. They're not really doing anything focused. So, Yeah, I think for a lot of people, I would do, kind of the five tools. I think we even gave that, not specifically, but as an example to one of the guys that asked a question on Tuesday, talking about he's kind of lost on swimming and how we would kind of break things down with him is just go shorter, go more frequent. And it's muscle memory. And that's what you would see, with 2,000-3,000s a week, the time in between each swim is just so great. Like that was one of the first pieces of advice I ever got when it comes to swimming coaching, was from Dan Powell. He was one of the fastest 50 free guys in the world at one point. So for Western Kentucky, his dad was a longtime Western Kentucky swim coach. And when I was working at his shop, he had like in his pool in there. He was doing swim analysis for Olympians and all kinds of stuff. And so that's where kind of I learned like the first parts of like, mechanics and stroke analysis. But, he's the same guy. He's one of the top. At one point, he was like had the fourth fastest 50 in the world, but the sixth fastest 100 on his collegiate team. So like that's how different it was. But he told me one thing, and I do think it holds true, is that it's really, really, really hard to get better at something if there are more days you're not doing it than days you are doing it. Right. And so like the 5 days a week, you're swimming 5 days, you're only taking 2 days where you're not swimming. But 3K days, yeah, you're getting 3K in, but you're only swimming twice. And then there's 5 days of the week that you're not doing it. And so, I mean, again, that's not, something everyone can do. But yeah, I think I would, I'm coming around on that. On paper, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah. The thing I think about that all the time, because frequency to me, because there's just a little something about if you swim like 3 days in a row, that third day, you're kind of like, feels like being on land, versus, so I think every time, if you're splitting that up with 5 day breaks or something like that, and it takes you probably 500 to 1,000 to actually feel like you're, comfortable again, if you're not used to it. I feel that on the bike when I ride 5 days a week or something. Just getting on the saddle feels more normal just because it's a frequency. So it's the same thing. Like going into, let's say, running 5 days a week versus going out and running 1 2.5 hour run. You know what I mean? I'll take the 30-minute runs 5 days a week all day. To me, it's about form at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's no, I agree. It's a really great discussion too, because going back to getting the most out of the set, like I completely agree with you. Like if you're, if I take like a week or two off swimming, like it takes me 2 or 3 swims to even like get back in a groove. And like have a good feel for the water. So if you're not having a good feel, your technique and your rhythm is off, like what are you really practicing? Yeah, you got to kind of get back into it. But I think, if you've been like traveling and you took a week off of swimming, or maybe even 2 weeks, right, which is pretty common for triathletes, is like instead of coming back in and trying to make that first session like a quote unquote like makeup session, like I've been missing too much time. Isn't like, I'm gonna get in 3 to 4K today. Like do like a 1,500 tech session. Like just try to get the feel, like try to expedite the process for getting the feel back for the water, not doing some massive set where you're probably going to click through, 15 to 1,800 and you're sloppy. You're just kind of going through the motions. Right. So, but I agree with you. Like I don't feel it as much with running, but I feel it a lot with cycling. It's there've been times where I've done like, 3 weeks where I've probably ridden every day except for like one. And then there's like maybe an hour or 2 hours and something a little bit more. But like you said, on day like 4 or 5 of riding in a row, it's not that my threshold has jumped, significantly higher, or I feel that much stronger on my top end. But I just kind of settle into like a really smooth and solid zone 2 in like an instant. And it's just, just like you were saying, like my legs are like, oh, like this is what we do. I feel this, like there is no, like I'm not feeling clunky. It doesn't take me, 15 to 20 minutes to warm up. I'm not having to do like a slow ramp from 50% up to 90 to kind of like quote unquote wake things up, because nothing is dormant, because I just did it 24 or less hours ago, and I just kind of fall right back in the pattern. Like I've seen that before in running too. Like, you don't run for a bit, in your first run, you're kind of like, you just kind of feel clunky and heavy, and obviously that's not ideal. So like, same thing applies, right? Going back for the, your first run, like go out there and, maybe do like some, walk for a little bit, and then, do some strides and try to get that form back. Same thing with the ride. Like don't go back and try to, recoup all the training you feel like you've missed because you didn't do anything. Do some like high cadence, low cadence work on just trying to, get the skill set back. And I just think there's a lot of value in that when we talk, we spend a lot of time. I say we, I mean like, every bit of, triathlon, media you can consume, social media, podcasts, print, forum, whatever it is, about, quality over quantity. And I think a lot of times people always equate quality, quote unquote, to intensity. Right.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And so I think it's important to note, like, quality is just like what you get out of it. It's like if you're going to buy like, quality meat, you want some good, like grass fed, meaty, fatty ribeye. Like you can also go to, like Kroger and get a thin one. It's still a ribeye. They're both ribeyes. One is just like really, really quality. It's not like they're, vastly, they're shaped the same, they both come from, cows. Same thing with like quality, and like what we do with our training is like you can, like a 30 to 35 minute run can still be really high quality if you're, if you're engaging everything and you're making your form correct. And then you could do a 60-minute run where you're just like barely shuffling your feet. You can't get them off the ground. You trip over a pebble if you came to one. Is that quality just because it's longer? No, it's like, these movement patterns, obviously these movement patterns matter. And so again, like with these things like swimming, and like a lot of the time, I think people, like you said before, in like the 2-3Ks, there's so much time and distance in between each one that it's going to take you, 1,500, 2,000 even to get some form. And by then you're probably tired because you only swim twice a week. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think there's a ton of value in that. And, we've always talked about with, sneaking in like, the 20-minute runs, well, what's the point of that? What's the 30 minutes? Like it's to me, it's just so similar to just training consistency. The more consistent you are with your training, you just kind of wake up and you just your body kind of like craves it because it expects it, right? I'm going to train today. So you might not have like a ton of energy, but you just kind of your body expects a train. So it's kind of telling you, hey, like, it's kind of like telling you, hey, let's go train, let's go do something with our body, versus if you're very inconsistent, a lot of times your body and your mind telling you the opposite, right? Let's go sit. Let's not do anything. Let's sleep in, let's go lay on the couch because that's what you're used to. And so we can create momentum all these different ways. So I think there's a lot of value. I mean, it's the reason I'm packing my bag to go swim here after this. I had a good swim yesterday, but it took me forever to get like a good feel for the water because I hadn't swam since Saturday. And I was like, I got to get back in and like, get some feel. I'll probably only do like 1,500. You're like, oh, what's the point? I'm like, but the 1,500 I'm going to do today is going to make the 3K I do tomorrow more valuable because I'm going to have better feel and I'm going to get more out of it. And I think that's just something we overlook too often.
Yeah, well, the way you put that, I mean, you're breaking down barriers of resistance in my mind. So it's like if you got a hard hour-and-a-half bike on a Thursday or something like today, like I've been thinking of, because really the context of this for me in my mind is sort of people that are really inconsistent or they're struggling and that, their big race is coming up and they're kind of busy with work and life and whatever. And the next thing you know, they're like, well, I got to go ride 5 hours Saturday and I got to go run 2 hours Sunday. But they're not prepared for it. So like half of the ride is just a struggle and there's terrible form and they're not using the right muscle groups, and the same with the run. And in my opinion, it's like if you're behind the 8 ball, just start layering these littler things like this and, breaking up a hour-and-a-half ride into maybe a morning ride, so you go a little harder or whatever, and then the afternoon you just get on and spin. And the reason I even think about this kind of stuff is because I've sort of put myself in these corners sometimes. But I mean, I go back to the reason I always think about that Louisville race when I just swam every day for like 2 weeks before. I was so afraid of not having a wetsuit up at Louisville that year in the heat. So I just went to the pool like every day for like 1,000. And by that, I just felt like comfortable in the water, and that just eased everything by that race. And then I kind of did it this year with Rockford, even though it was a downstream wetsuit swim, which is easy. But I literally swam maybe like 6 times since Wisconsin last year. But all I did was go out and do what you're saying, which is find my form, find the best form I could have to make it feel as easy as possible. You know, and then, you know, I'd consider myself an average swimmer probably. And I go out, and that race just felt really good, smooth. You know, I didn't have any kind of problems whatsoever. And, you know, I swam like 6 times, and I was 6 minutes behind the first person out of the water. You know, I know it was a kind of a condensed thing, but still, it was all about just kind of swimming every day for like 6 or 7 days, and then going to do the race. And it was just sort of part of things. So I think there's a lot to be said for not taking long breaks between running, swimming, or biking. Just even if it's like get on the bike and ride around the neighborhood for 30 minutes, just to kind of supplement. You know, I think even people that are training well and on fire can maybe benefit from, like, you mentioned the 20-minute run. I think that's just a gold standard in some ways. It's just like add a couple of those a week that don't bother you, don't really wear you out or anything, but they kind of give you that run, repetitive work on your form. Maybe that's just like a little form session or something where you don't beat yourself up, you know. I like those little, we talk about split workouts, you know, split rides and things like that, or split runs. I think those are, let's say you got one workout, why not get up and hit the treadmill for 20 minutes or 15 minutes, you know? And like you're saying, you can add these little nuggets throughout the week, even inside a training plan, I think a lot of times, to give you maybe an extra hour and a half of work a week that doesn't really bother you, but it maybe locks your form in a little bit better, or it gives you a certain comfortability factor with the, you know, it just adds a little bit of confidence with what you're doing.
There's 2 things that stood out to me what you said, and the first one is like the more you do something, the more you kind of crave it and are kind of addicted to continuing to want to do it. And that goes both ways.
I agree with
right?
that. That's the motivation.
Exactly, right? Like if people just think that you like, you know, you're just a motivated person. Like motivation is like complete, like will just go away sometimes. But the more you do something, right? Because I think people are always motivated. It's just, what are you motivated to do? I'm motivated to go train, or I'm motivated to go sit on my ass. You're still motivated, right? It's one of them is just very different than the other. So the more you do something, the more motivated you are to do it. You go to this, you pool 2 or 3 days in a row, you're probably like, hey, you're no longer seeing it as a chore, right? You're like, oh God, I gotta go to the pool today. You're like, I'm going to the pool again today, right? You enjoyed the day before because you did it. It wasn't daunting, and you created these habits, and now you're embracing it. So now you're definitely going to get something out of it. Same thing with, like you said, like just a little bit extra, you know, ride here and there, or run here and there. Just, it makes you kind of continue to want more and more and more. And I think, like, I love what you said about kind of like doing things that help prime and get ready to body. Like, it's no different than when you go to the gym. Like, if you really want to hit a set hard, you want to move correctly, right? Because you're pushing a lot of weight or doing a lot of intensity. Like, you want to do a proper warm up and like some mobility to get your good range of motion, and you're going to do some prep sets, and then you're ready. You know, in triathlon, like, yeah, we don't always have that. It's like there's lots of ways I think we can incorporate those things into our day-to-day training that, again, like you might not see and feel, right, the value immediately in the small session that you do, right? But just like, you know, especially when it's hot right now, we tell people that, you know, you need to fuel before, during, and after your sessions, because the fueling in the session you're doing now is allowing you to recover better for the one you're going to do tomorrow, right? You get behind on fueling today, during your workout, it's going to have a higher recovery cost. You're not going to perform well tomorrow. And that goes to the same, you know, same thing goes for swimming and cycling and running. Like, yeah, like neither one of us are telling you to go, you know, swim, bike, and run 7 days a week. You know, it's just not possible. right? But if you have time or you have, the ability to sneak in, even if it's just like a 20-minute like high cadence session after a run or before a run, right? Or you got a little bit extra time, you're like, I'm just gonna head to the pool. But it's only 1,500. Like, I'm not gonna get anything out of it. Yes, you are, because if you got it, one, I love it that you're choosing action, not inaction, right? You're choosing to go do something that's positive that can help. You're not choosing to do nothing, right? I think those choices add up, not just in fitness, but also in just kind of our mentality in general. Are you a person that's always going to choose to do it and make that time and make that effort? Or are you the person who's always going to say, it doesn't matter. I can do it tomorrow. I'll start next week. I'll do it in a few weeks. Like, that's how we begin. That's how we create habits, and that's where you continue to stay motivated in whatever direction, your continued habits drive you. Again, it's either motivating you to continue to train and be super consistent, or it's motivating you to do nothing. You're still motivated. Like, I hear that excuse, I'm just not motivated. Yeah, you are. You're motivated to do nothing. Like that, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're putting all your energy into not training or finding excuses. So yeah, you're motivated. You're just not motivated in the area that you feel like you should be or want to be. So the only way to fix that is to start, is to do things that are actionable, right? Put some action into your life. Go swim, go bike, go run, and then you become more motivated to do that instead of what you were motivated, which is nothing. So adding things in, I think is huge. I think it's huge mentally and emotionally from a confidence standpoint, but even more so, like we said, about, getting the most out of your sessions. And you made a good example, like on the longer run stuff about, hey, can I slog along sometimes is, if you got like an hour and 20, hour and a half run, and you want to get the most out of it, sometimes you can start with probably like a 15-minute walk with a few strides before you even hit start. Just get out and loosen, or just hop on the bike and do like a high cadence spin for like 20, 25 minutes. Just wake the body up. Like, oh, well, that's going to look weird when I upload to Strava. It's only a 25-minute bike ride. But, okay, it's about it's about moving correctly and getting the most out of our time. And I think that's just something that is super important, and why I'm such a huge, like, if you're a time crunched athlete and you got an hour and 20-minute, trainer ride in the morning, you can only do like an hour and 10. Do the whole warm up and then do as much of the main set as you can, and then cool down for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then just get off. Right? Don't cut the main set for the cool down. Like, just get in, get done, and move on with your day. Get in the stuff that you need to get in. That warm up is just so crucial. I know, like, you see it a ton in swimming. Like, people just want to speed through and get to the main set just so you can get over with, and then those same individuals that are tired of being the same speed are the same ones that are, rushing through every single thing that they do and not thinking, not trying to get better because, like, they don't see the value in that, getting better. But it is like the quality and, people want to always argue, oh, it's, quality over quantity. Like, I'm that kind of guy, or I'm a quality. It's like, no, it's the quantity of your quality that you can get in. And that doesn't mean high intensity sessions every day. It's like, am I moving well today? Like, a minute ago that I hop on the bike and just, like I was telling before, like when I'm in a good zone in the bike, like I hop on within 5 minutes, I'm like, you just feel smooth out of the gate. It's no different, I think, than, a lot of times you and I will talk about our own sessions and our athlete sessions. Like, they'll do a warm up and then they'll do like maybe some, like the Moneghetti run. I think it's a great example. Right, so they'll warm up and they'll do like a set, like a pyramid of 10 second on and off, all the way up to 90 seconds and back down. And they'll do this, they'll do the warm up, and they'll do like a main set, and then the cool down, quote unquote. They're like, man, like my RPE was lower. I was running way faster than I was in the warm up, and felt so much more smooth. And logically, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense, right? You warm up, you should be, getting things better, and you should execute it, the best during the actual main set. But then you're going so hard, you should be tired. So maybe your form should be a little bit calmer. But a lot of times they say the opposite. They're like, or it's like double run day. Another one, like double run day. It's like, yeah, I really thought, my second run was gonna suck so bad, but after about 5 minutes, like, I felt amazing, and I actually felt better than the morning. It's just another good example of like all these little things add up. And I think it's just that little extra attention to detail that if we would take, I think goes a lot longer than, a lot farther for each of us, right? Than worrying about, nailing the intensity or the watts for each and every, set that we do, and what's the right, zone to be in. The zone to be in is the being in the zone, which is like consistent and motivated to work, and then pay attention to those small little details that add up over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, and I've got another one, the little bit of the frequency of, I made a rule for myself about 3 weeks ago, and it was a non-negotiable little yoga kind of mobility thing that I created. It's like 15 minutes, but I do it every day. But that's the same type of deal. The more you do that, the more you look forward to it, kind of thing. It's just, I just feel like it's the more comfortable you are with things, and the more your fitness and pliability and mobility and whatever thing comes along, you look forward to doing shit more often. So I find myself where maybe I used to kind of be like, well, I'm gonna go watch a YouTube video. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go down and do this mobility because it's starting to feel better. You know what I mean? You start to feel more comfortable with it, and you look forward to it because you're kind of seeing like, yeah, this is sort of doing something for me. And that, adding a couple short bikes a week, I keep my bike in the garage and I keep my shoes right there, and it's real easy to say, I'm going to go out and ride around this 3-mile loop twice or whatever, and 6-8 miles or whatever. And I don't have to nutrition up or any of that shit. You just kind of go spin your bike. Mm-hmm. And then, like you're saying, you create more quantity of the quality if you're thinking about even if you're, a lot of times I'll go out there and say, all right, well, that felt really, I know I could hold this all day, whatever it is, it's 16 miles an hour or something, 17. I'm like, that to me builds confidence, because I think most people listening to this podcast, especially if they have an Ironman or a half on the docket, can go out any given weekend and ride 5 hours if they have to, or 6 hours, and then run 2.5 hours. But it's just going to be miserable. You know what I mean? So it's like, because I think a lot of people just do that to prove to themselves they can do it. And I'm telling you right now, if you've been training for the last 5-6 months, you can do that, and that's why I always say, it's like, if you really want to go out and struggle, just save it till race day, and just on the way up, just just build up your form as much as possible, build up your strength, get to the best place you can be to go do that, killer of a weekend or day or whatever it may be. I mean, those are important. I think, again, it's just like, it's like we struggle with confidence, and, back to that email or that question last week about, imposter syndrome. It's like, you have to figure out, you just, at some point you have to believe you can do it, and I'm telling you right now, like you said in the email, I think you see it in athletes before they do a lot of times, the potential. And if you're building week upon week upon week on fatigue and all this kind of stuff, and you keep going back to the well, I mean, it's that if you're going to go out and race, you have to, and I keep telling people, it's like, let's go into this race realistically, and sort of that aim low mentality that we all struggle with. And it's like, just know what you can do. And if you feel a little bit better, which you might, and you probably will, I think you're better off aiming a little low and then ending a little higher than trying to go, above your skis. And then it can turn into a shit fest. And I've been there many times. And for me, it really is just about just confidence and believing in yourself. And, back to this imposter syndrome that I think it was a woman was talking about going to Kona. There's a lot of really dicky people out there, but there's a lot of really cool it's just all on them. I mean, it's got nothing to do with you. I mean, just you're going out and doing some cool shit, and you made it to Kona, or I think it was Kona, right? Or was it?
Yeah, I think it was 70.3 world.
70.3, yeah.
Yeah, took the slot at Rockford. Doesn't feel quote unquote, fast enough. And I agree with everything you said. I mean, you kind of said verbatim what I was going to say. Like, to me, I think a lot of people struggle with this, right? And is, first and foremost, like, the person that should believe in you the most is you.
And your
but
mom.
that's also the hardest,
Your mom.
right? Like, you might be the same, Mike, but I know for me, like, it's way easier for me to believe in my athletes than it is to me to believe in myself. It's like you put all this effort, like, oh, I can see all those things, and like I can see you doing that, like that you're this kind of guy, and I can, but sometimes I don't have that with me. I have those, again, not really imposter, but like just that, that little self-criticism that you're not good enough, you're not athletic enough, you're going to fail, you're gonna, like, all those voices are still there. And so, like, I think a lot of times when people take these slots or sign up for things, you're looking for a specific instant, right? An event or a qualification to just basically turn your belief system on its head. And that's not going to happen, right? For one, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over time, because you got to feeling that way as an imposter, not good enough, over time. It didn't just happen. You just wake up and be like, oh, I just don't think I'm good enough. It could have started when you were 7, 8 years old, like, from, parents or teacher or coaches or friends or whatever. Like, we have these belief systems for a reason. We didn't just like wake up and feel that way. I know it's something that I still struggle with, but I think the most important thing is to always remember that, just like Mike said, there's a lot of dicks out there, but there's a lot of really cool, like, supportive, people. And honestly, like, I hate the word deserve, because it's just like, what do people deserve? And who are we to decide what they do or do not, quote unquote, deserve? And a lot of times, like, you look at people who, you're like, oh, they deserve that. And I'm like, well, what, and then other people are like, oh, they didn't deserve that. And they're like, well, that's really just your opinion, right? Just like our reality is our own reality. You say something to someone, and you're having a great day and they're having a horrific day, and you say something that you deliver and you thought in a pretty good way, and they take it very personally. Well, it's not your fault, right? It's not necessarily their fault either. It's just our different realities clashing. And so some people, they're going to think, oh, you don't deserve that, because they're putting all their self-worth in the fact that, one, they're probably not going, and them going will validate them. So they also don't want you to feel validated, right? But the biggest thing to me is, who gives a fuck what other people think? Like, the most important thing for you to feel is that, you took the slot, you throw down the cash, right? You finished the race. To me, it's no different than, and I hate this comment from athletes sometimes, like, yeah, I got first, but nobody showed up today. I'm like, what do you mean no one showed up today? Like, you got first. You can only beat who shows up. They're like, I'm like, what kind of, like, deprecating thought process is that? Like, I'm only good enough today because other people that I think are better than me didn't come and I can't beat them. Like, what kind of thought process is that? Like, you can only beat who shows up. You can only play the team that's in front of you. Like, that's not your responsibility to take or not take other people's slots ahead of you, right? You just made the decision in the moment to be like, you know what? I feel like I deserve to go. I put in hard work. I trained my butt off. I feel like I did very well. Just because some people ahead of me chose not to take it doesn't mean I don't deserve to take it. And I think it's a really hard mental shift, right? When people have that self-deprecating and that imposter syndrome of, success, because they're not used to it. It makes them uncomfortable, right? They're not good at taking compliments. Like, all those resonate with me. Like, I don't feel comfortable. Like, it's still something at 46 years old I struggle with. And that's something I feel like I get better at, here and there in certain areas, and still struggle, in others. To me, it's like, I still look in the mirror, having been overweight at one point. I still look in the mirror sometimes and see myself as fat, like we all have these things I think we struggle with. And the most important thing is for us to, for me at least, and is to work on changing your belief system and your perception of yourself, and never care about the perception and what other people think, because, and again, like, they're seeing it through their lens. And, you know, I think most of our lenses could probably use a little bit more clarity, you know? So it's, again, you deserved it because you took it, and now go enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost started kind of chuckling there, because if I was thinking about imposter syndrome, and then because we talked about how many podcasts we've had and if they hold up and everything like that. I feel like both of us probably still have a bit of a imposter syndrome on a podcast, you know, like, you know,
100%.
Level. So it's like,
for sure.
But I was thinking about, I mean, this actually ties really well into what we were saying earlier, because I do think that consistency and frequency is the way to confidence, right? You know, the more you do these little things, it's got to be internal. You can't, you know, look on because social media is like, it's all outlier shit, you know, and the same, that's how I feel about news. It's all outlier. They try to pimp you into being afraid of all these things and whatever. And if you don't watch it, you don't even think about it. But if you go more and more frequent into your own world, into your own, you know, 20-minute run here and there, adding these things and being frequent. Cause I noticed, like, all my athletes that have it's like us taking a couple weeks off of podcast. We come back in, we're a little our feet are a little unstable, and we're not really, you know, you always have doubts. And I think that I watch athletes year after year after year be super infrequent and then just struggle with confidence. And you wonder why? Well, it's because you're not doing it. You know, that's the only way to build confidence, is actually do shit and repeat it over and over and over. And, you know, it's like, that's why I'm such a big fan of what we're talking about today, because even if it's a little bit, it just kind of, you keep your, you know, your muscle memory, and you keep your, I think about it with drumming a lot. If I play a lot of drum, you know, if I don't play forever, I'm just like, I can't even remember how to do this. Like some days, like, you know, I've done this before where I've gone into taper week and I've kind of stopped training, you know, basically I'm done hazing the barn kind of thing. And then, you know, you're traveling and you're, you know, eating out and doing these things, and you're just like, shit, I haven't done anything. I feel kind of rested, but I'm kind of wondering if I'm even going to remember how to shift my bike. You know, it's like you just, it's the little things that cause that doubt. So I think really, honestly, the key to confidence in this sport is actually just being real consistent and just doing it over and over and over again, and being confident with where you're at, because you can only be where you're at. You can't be somebody, you know, that's, you know, going to ride Ironman in 5 hours if you never do that kind of shit. And I think a lot of, even me, I kind of get these, you know, you mentioned Tricalc to me last week. It's sort of like, man, I really think we need to go into that with more realism, you know, sort of like, you know, if I know I can do these swim hundreds at 148, and if I can do 148 for the whole 4400s, you know, then, you know, it's like what part of that 4,400 is a lot longer than 100 in a pool. It doesn't add up to us.
Right.
Or, you know, riding a very difficult bike course for 6.5 hours and then trying to run a marathon off. I mean, it's just like, that's why I just think it's so important to be realistic. And you can have, you know, like if you're trying to do a certain time, you know, you have a goal, your confidence can go really far out the window if you get behind, you know, and then you're trying to struggle. But if you aim at something you know you can do, and then maybe you can push that up just a little bit if you're starting to feel good. These are, you can do that with workouts. You know, I do it all the time. I'm just going to go out and swim 600 today. I'll do shit like that. And then I feel pretty good. I can do maybe 1,200. Like things like that happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's because every time I sit on that shore and think I'm going to go swim, I'm like, fuck, I can't. I'm going to go I don't even feel like swimming out to that island right now, let alone doing 3,000. So I just have to do that over and over and over just to kind of like, I'm just going to start, you know?
Yeah.
And then the body sort of takes over, but I don't put myself behind the 8 ball on every single workout. I'm just going to do it, see how it feels. And then some days it feels great and I go further. Some days it doesn't. And I stop short. George Costanza, or
George Costanza.
not George, what, Frank?
Frank.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I love that. I think like, two things, and we can wrap it up. Is like, her name was Lacey Zuck. I went back and looked while you were talking. He was talking about the not feeling like, they deserved it. I'm like, to me, that's like no different than being like, hey, like, if Hayden came home and he was doing a tryout for a hockey team and he's like, hey, I made it. I'm like, that's great and all, but like the team's not very good. You wouldn't have made the other team. So we're just not going to play hockey. It's like, what do you mean? Like, it's like, it's no different, right? But we're so hard on ourselves. And like we try, we don't try like to see, like again, and I think we put in, here's the thing, right? Is that, qualifying for these things are cool, but in like the grand scheme of life, no one cares. No one cares.
Yeah.
Right. It's how much you care. Right. But in terms of like the things that you deserve, I'm like, if you want to go. It's a hobby that we do that you're going to shell out $5,000 to go do. If you want to go do it, it's like, you don't deserve to take that vacation. Yeah, you do. Go take it. It's like, listen, like there's way too much that goes on in the world that's probably not fair or people don't deserve for us to worry about doing things that make us feel good that we're worried people won't think that we actually deserve. Who cares? And there's way too many, this just as much as I do from reading through Training Peaks and emails, that we get, every day from our own athletes, how fucking hard life is and how many times you just wake up and sometimes it just punches you right in the face. We get enough of those, right? Mm-hmm. When we're not looking, and so if you got the opportunity, you got the time and the effort and the energy and the finances to do this and take it and enjoy it, then go. Like, who's to say like you shouldn't go do it? But that's where we are, with stuff. But no, I mean, I think like you said it, like your first time on the podium, your first time, at a certain part of the race, you might feel like you don't belong, but then the more you put yourself there, then you feel like you do belong. Like you said, that's why it's so much about repetition, right? The things that we do frequently add up to like, really and truly like, what we are and who we're doing, or who we're trying to become. If you try to be consistent on, you're doing 4 or 5 days a week, every single week, that's consistent, right? That stuff adds up. And if you're trying to be perfect all the time, then it's just never going to happen. It's just never, you're never going to get there because there's no such thing. And if you're a person who's a perfectionist and in your head, nothing is ever perfect. So you're just kind of like chasing your tail. It's just something that you gotta, like a little bit can just go, a little bit goes a long way. It's just like a fix. Like I was telling you before one of the podcasts earlier this week, how much Hayden has been like loving fishing. His grandpa's here and they've been fishing like every day for like 4 or 5 hours. And he came up to me this morning, a couple hours for the podcast, was like, hey, can you take me to the store? I want to get some more bait to fish today. And so we got home and his papa's got to go to the airport at 12:30. And so we're like, he's got to run an errand or two. And I was like, hey, like you can't probably go all morning, but he was like super disappointed. And I was like, but you can go for 40 minutes to an hour. I know it's not much, but it's still better than nothing. And, some kids just have a really hard time of like, seeing the value and like, I just want to go all day or it's nothing. And I was like, so you can either, you got to be flexible, right? I know you wanted to fish all morning and expected to fish all morning right up until it's time to go to the airport, but that's not how life works. You got to adapt. You got to be flexible. You got an hour. You can go from 8:45 to 10 o'clock. And just take that as your win for the day and just get the hour. And he was like, okay, let's do that. So is it the all day thing that he wanted to do? No. But it was the 45, 50 minutes or whatever he's going to get. That was enough. And funny enough, like he sent me this picture where we're on the cast, he caught his largest bass. Oh, wow. And yeah, while doing the cast. But yeah, in that short little 45-minute session. A little just that he almost didn't do because it wasn't going to be enough, like not long enough of experience. I think it's, again, like, it's maybe not just a perfect analogy, but we want, you go, was one thing before we close out that I didn't touch on. I thought was such a great comment about like how we tend to, in the, especially like 70.3s and fulls, we get to these like 5 and 6 hour rides, and the last hour and 2 hours is just an absolute sufferfest. You don't want to be on the bike. You're getting weaker. It's hot. You're not like getting off with a positive, right? You can't wait. Just like you said, if you want to suffer, save that shit for race day, right? Like it's going to happen. Like there's no reason to get used to it. That's why, like, talk about podcasts that still stand the test of time is we've talked about negative splitting since we started podcast number 1. And it is all about, right, finishing fast, finishing strong, finishing hard. Because it's not just about the stimulus, it's about what you're telling yourself and it feels like to finish on a high note. You're not like barely straight, you're not barely putting one foot in front of the other. You're not like pedaling at 55 RPMs, can't wait to get off the saddle. You're doing your highest power at the end, feeling good, feeling strong. In my opinion, for most people, instead of a 6-hour endurance ride, of just like maybe struggling to hit 100, I'm like a thought number, instead of like struggling to hold it around 165, 170 watts for 6 hours, and the last hour and a half, 2 hours being just horrendous and a bad experience. And like, you're not going to leave that besides like checking off your box of I did the quote unquote the time. You're better off doing an hour at 55, an hour at 65, an hour at 75, and the last hour, just give it hell, like 195, 200. You're going to end up around 175, but you're going to finish stronger. You're going to finish more powerful, and you're going to be done, right? You're still going to get a good stimulus, but you're going to be done before that, like you said, like that mental, emotional, and physical sufferfest is going to come, and you got stronger. And I think we stuff like that is way overlooked, especially when we get to the iron distance.
Yeah. And there's just one final thought I had in this is the bitter truth about Ironman. And this is something I'm still learning and dealing with. Finishing an Ironman is not going to make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may in the moment for a little while, and it is a great feeling and all that kind of stuff. But I just think it's so important to get back to this 20-minute run thing, because these are the little things. These are the things that are going to build that confidence and give you that momentum and things like that. And that's just daily life. We talked about it, but, Ironman's one day. It's not, you can't think of it as in terms of that is going to be the changing point in my life. The changing point in your life is today, and being consistent. And it's just a lesson I'm still learning, you keep doing these things. And I do like the finish line is one of the greatest feelings ever, but it's like, I can't hang my hat on that, it's just, and that's like a bitter reality. And it's just like being in this moment. It's the hardest thing to do, but today's the day, and let's start the frequency right now or tomorrow or whatever. Not tomorrow, but today. And that's where I just think that's where contentment and happiness comes, is when you give up the phone for a 20-minute run. Mm-hmm. Those are the little things that are just going to start layering, but you got to keep doing them. And I think the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then, then you can make it a 30-minute run, because you'll be stronger at some point.
Yeah, actually, we'll close it. I used a little Mike Terali, like almost honestly verbatim of what you said. It's funny how we still do that after a decade, but I've got an athlete who's just struggling like an enormous amount with consistency. And, the comment that they made was, I'm just stuck in this stupid rut. And, I've been with this athlete for 9 years. So we have this kind of relationship. And I just said, I need you to get off your ass today and go walk for 20 to 30 minutes, no phone or watch. Just go do it, and then let me know when you're finished. Like exactly what you just said. Like, just get up and do it. You gotta, and I think it's exceptionally hard for people that have done Ironman before, or 70.3s before, because there's this enormity of what it requires and what it costs to accomplish that a 20-minute walk when you're in a rut seems both insignificant and insurmountable. Because it seems insignificant because of what we know we've done in the past. 5-hour, 6-hour rides, 2-hour runs, 5K swims, right? You're like, fuck that. And then it also seems completely insurmountable because you're frozen in this rut and you can't even fathom getting up to do that same thing. And it's those two heads butting that I think a lot of times leave you there, right? You're stuck in the doorway between the two, which leaves you not motivated or not putting the effort in to overcome either. And I think it's just a great point you made, just to, like you said, take the frequency, get up, whether it's 15, 5, 10, 15 to, it's not the duration, it's not the distance, it's the choice to attempt. And so, yeah, I love that message. Hope you guys took at least something out of it today. I know I did. I always get a good lesson, for these as well, because I feel like a lot of times we're talking to ourselves or talking to each other, and it's always super helpful for me. Hopefully it was for you as well. Big racing weekend this weekend. You got a bunch of local 70.3s and in Olympics. You got Lake Placid. You got Ohio. Big weekend. So best of luck to everyone racing. I know we'll have a huge race roster we'll put out here tomorrow morning. But yeah, best luck to everyone. Have fun. Have a good time. Remember, the only two things you can control are your effort and your execution. As always, we love you guys and we appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is your one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's available, Mike at c26triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
All right, bud. See ya.
See ya.